But you were talking about cloud types. Can you Google some cloud types and just run through some?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think basically, I just want to double check. So I was actually in a plane the other day, flying through clouds, and geez, it looked so benign, but in reality, there's a lot going on inside them, really, isn't there?
It's always turbulence,
Yeah.
especially when you're going through
Yeah.
the long ones.
Thing with planes is you're doing a couple hundred knots, so like a 2-knot jolt, you're not going to notice. It's
Yeah.
like a 1% difference.
And the other difference is when you're in a plane, you're in a thing that weighs a ton, or if it's an airliner, like 100 tons, and we weigh 100 kilos. So like we're getting pushed around by the same forces, but we're a tiny fraction of the weight of an aeroplane. So we just get smashed by any kind of turbulence. So we feel it a lot more. Yeah. And clouds are, like, they're pretty, Mike, you'd know, pretty rough inside. I haven't even got sucked fully into one, like just kind of gone up and into the edge and out, like just not turning out soon enough at the top of a thermal. And even that, you feel like when you go into it that things probably...
So what's it like inside a cloud then, Mikey?
What did you want to know about like,
Well, okay, so look at them. So let's on the extreme right, avoid, under all circumstances, yeah?
Yeah,
So when does a cumulus turn into a cumulus?
that's a really good question. There's something called a sounding that we look at, which is a graph, which I was showing these guys yesterday. Quite often, like clouds form when the moisture in the air gets to the dew point and then turns to moisture. Does that make sense? That's not a very scientific way of putting it. And so the heat rises, thermals rise as moisture in the thermals in the air, and then it gets to a stage where it then turns to water, and then you get cumulus clouds.
I'll just pinch a couple.
And then there's usually a band of how high those clouds are going to get, depending on the temperature around. And then when the temperature
No, I'm good, thanks.
when the temperature doesn't come back, the moisture just can keep rising and rising and rising until you get these giant clouds. That's a really layman's way of putting it, and probably not a super good explanation.
You sound like a scientist.
And did you guys learn about cloud suck as well? Yeah?
Yeah.
So that's like a cumulonimbus is basically cloud suck that gets out of control. And it just, the more it kind of like the water vapor condenses and creates heat and pulls up, the more thermals it pulls in, and then they release their heat and it feeds itself and just accelerates the whole time until basically it's depleted all of the heat and moisture from under the ground and it's all up in the top, and then it weighs billions of tons and then it all just dumps back down again. So.
I'm probably not the best data really only know about this cloud and this cloud.
Is that because that's all you're kind of looking for when you want to get thermals and that kind of thing, like in terms of what you need to fly well?
Yeah, so for me to fly across country, I'm looking for these, covering about 3/8 of the sky. If there's a forecast for these, then I'll be very, very cautious about where I'm flying. And these guys up here, like you often see cirrus clouds around a low pressure system. And if there's lots of high clouds, they block thermal activity because the sun can't get through.
But they're all like, 10 kilometres up in the
High
sky.
cloud,
They're just
So we
about-
like 30,000.
They just block the sun, and I don't like
So they're
block
just-
the sun.
Yeah.
Never
The
been
high
there.
cloud doesn't block, well, it blocks the sun, but not as much as some of those others. So you can still get a thermic day when there's the cirrus,
Yeah.
particularly if it's just bare tails or something like that.
But sometimes it can help when you're learning because you know that if the cirrus cloud, it's not going to overheat and get super, super strong for the day. Like it's just going to keep a lid on it a little bit. And they can be good. These are the bad ones. Like when usually this covers the sky and it's raining. Those ones really block it out. That's just like a big blanket. The cirrus tends to be a bit more wispy and the sun can get through. The altostratus, they just blanket the whole
So the
sky.
difference between altostratus and stratus is just height.
Yeah.
Yes.
That sounds
Strato
prefix.
means blanket.
Look at you.
Strato.
Strato.
Yeah.
It's like Latin for blanket.
Yeah.
So it's like, it just means it's
Duvet.
it's just going to cover.
An alto cumulus can often mean that this will happen later in the day. It's just like as a rough guide, because the thermals are already getting up really high, even early in the day. They're getting up and forming at this really high altitude. So I believe there's like more chance of overdevelopment to cumulonimbus later in the day. And sometimes like the cumulus will just, there's overdevelopment. There's different flying scenes, like the sailplanes call overdevelopment something different, but we call that overdevelopment when it gets vertical. And then there's overclouding, or there's a couple of other names. What do you call it when it's like spread out? When the cumulus are really efficient and it's sucking lots of thermals up, but they get so many of them that then the sun can't get through to the ground to heat it up for more thermals. So sometimes that will actually shut everything down, that all the cumulus almost join. And that's generally called spread out or overclouding, and it just shuts the day down. But sometimes that will just go in cycles because the cumulus will all form because it's like really thermic. And then they shade the ground out, and then there's no thermal source, so nothing there to form more cumulus, so they'll all dissipate, and then it'll start another cycle. So you can get like 2 or 3 cycles of that during a day.
Like lemon the other day.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it was all clouded out, and
Yeah.
then when the sun did come, the thermals came for a little
Yeah.
bit,
Yeah.
and then it got clouded out again.
Yeah.
There are like actual heights that, like for these to be classified in certain heights or whatever, but the only ones we will ever fly in is low. We'll never fly in the other stuff.
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it's probably higher than 3,000 meters. What's
The
it called,
bottom?
like, yeah.
Yeah.
Because alto cumulus is just cumulus, just really high. That's why they're smaller. Just because they're much further away.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.